Hello, and welcome to another Angry's unit of the week. And today we're taking a look at the Obice 75/27 75mm howitzer. So the gun in question today is a Canon de 75/27 Modulo 11. I apologise for the poor Italian, it's more later on in the video. It's basically a light field gun which was used by cavalry and mountain troops. It was actually designed by a Frenchman, Colonel Duport, and it had two rather notable features. The first one, and a rather modernistic feature, is the split carriage design. It was the first artillery gun to do that, and as you may know, it was a rather popular design where most artillery and anti-tank guns would end up using. The second didn't really catch on as well, was the dual recoil system which the gun employed. Basically, the gun would recoil back, but also the mounting for the gun would recoil back as well to lessen the recoil load. It added a bit of complexity and didn't really catch on. The Germans would end up using some dual recoil systems with some of their heavier guns in the Second World War. It was used quite extensively, of course, by the Italians in the First World War, but also come the Second World War, an artillery gun is an artillery gun, so it was used by the Italians and eventually the Germans in the defense of Italy. In-game, the Obice 75/27 75mm is a 50-point howitzer, light, available to the 4th Alpini and the Italian Free Corps, and it has one weapon. That weapon being the 75mm cannon. You have 55 high explosive shells and 15 smoke shells. It's a pretty standard light 75mm gun. It's got decent high explosive and suppression, decent range, decent rate of fire. It's just decent all around. Not great, just decent. Down to miscellaneous stats, it does shoot indirectly, surprisingly enough. It also has a radio, and it can lay smoke as well. It has 5 HP, good optics, very good stealth, and light cargo space. In battle, the 75/27 cannon is pretty decent, all things considering. It's a very cheap light howitzer, only 50 points, but the main gimmick really is the radio, because 50 points for a radio-based artillery piece is pretty nuts. As we all know, when you have a radio in your artillery gun, if you can actually spot stuff with other radio units, you become really bloody accurate, especially at long ranges. So even though this is a lighter field howitzer, you can really reach out and touch someone and blow them up with rather accurate fire, which makes this gun very good in the counter-battery, counter-anti-air role. Of course, it's a light howitzer, you're not going to be blowing up tanks or really, proper concentration of troops, unless it's just a bunch of, easy, squishy, soft targets. However, what is quite interesting are the other cheap artillery options in both divisions, which are both exactly the same artillery options. The first one is your standard 81mm mortar. It's 10 points more, and you also get a radio, which is quite nice, and of course a higher rate of fire because it is a mortar. However, the catch is you have less ammunition, as well as less HP on the unit, 3 compared to 5, meaning it is much more vulnerable. It does do a little bit more damage compared to the 75mm. And you got the other 75mm, the /13 model, the Austrian-Hungarian run compared to our French run here, which is quite a bit different, as instead of having smoke ammunition, you have heat ammunition instead, which makes it not a great anti-tank killer. It's only 70mm of penetration, but it does give it a different loadout. It's a little bit more cheaper, and you still have a pretty similar 75mm high explosive indirect capabilities. However, you don't get a radio, which means this thing is rather inaccurate, but you're kind of using it a little bit more as a frontline field gun compared to a, backline howitzer type weapon. In terms of its availability pattern, it's rather standard. You got 4A, 8B, and Trove and C phase. For the Alpini division, you only get a single card of these 75mm, and for the Italian Free Corps, you do get 3 of them, which is quite nice. Overall, this is a pretty decent light howitzer. It's really the radio which elevates this unit to actually being useful, as of course in 1v1s, artillery is It's a bit more important now compared to a few metas ago, but of course investing into a lot of heavy artillery guns can be quite pricey. However, you can still get pretty decent firepower out of these guns, especially if you just need counter battery or anti-air work for your artillery compared to just trying to blow up tanks and heavy enemy concentrations on the front line. It's a pretty good unit, all things considering, and for both Italian divisions, having some cheap artillery is never a bad option, as you kind of need to rely a little bit more on artillery with those divisions, just due to the, especially with Alpini, the lack of, really powerful direct fire high explosive units. And, well, I'm going to leave it off at, this has been another Rang Rouge unit of the week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as usual, please just take it easy.